Now, Eyewitness Sports.
Welcome in to Double OT episode 50, another remote episode with Mark Dondero, currently inside Gillette Stadium ahead of the NFL draft. And with that, we begin with the draft. Mark, round one tonight. Patriots don't have a first rounder because of the Brandon Cooks deal. Do you see the Pats somehow getting into the first round either via normal trade or via a trade that includes Jimmy Garoppolo or Malcolm Butler?
Well, Yianni, for the sake of my being here, I sure hope so. That'd be fun if something explosive happened like that while I was here. But with that being said, no, I do not believe that will happen. I think by the end of the night and by the end of the draft, Malcolm Butler and Jimmy Garoppolo will both still be on this roster. I just don't see it. I'm riding with Adam Schefter on this one. I feel like if the Patriots wanted to make a deal, I know when something is up against the deadline, things could change, but I just think they could have made a deal if they had wanted to by now. They haven't done it. Jimmy Garoppolo at the Celtics last night didn't seem on edge. Not that he would, but I still think he'll be cheering for his Chicago Bulls from afar while he works here in New England, because I don't think the Patriots are moving him, moving Butler, and I don't think they wind up in the draft tonight. Could they move up maybe tomorrow? I don't know. I won't rule that out. I do not think they're getting into the first round tonight. I don't think.
Yeah, ultimately, we never really know, do we, with Bill Belichick? And like most of the moves this offseason, you don't know about them until they actually happen. But I agree with you. I don't see them getting in the first round. I think they stay with Jimmy Garoppolo on their roster through this year and the final year of his contract. And I think the Malcolm Butler trade discussions with New Orleans have sort of subsided a little. So maybe something happens in the next few days or before the month ends, but I don't think that goes through tonight. And ultimately, the Patriots, why get into the first round? Is there that big of a hole at any position where they need a first-round talent? Right now, they're pretty solidified across the starting 22. So, I think over the course of the next few rounds, they'll be, plugging in some patches, some holes there, but no glaring need. So I don't think they do. But like the Patriots, we never quite know. So maybe they and the Pats in New Orleans pull something off last minute.
Well, the argument to get into the first round, no, they don't have any holes necessarily where they could use a player specifically, but they didn't have a first-round pick last year. They don't have one this year as of right this moment. And you could argue, those contracts are nice to have. A good impact player on the cheap. They didn't have one last year. They won't have one this year. That's why I know they have Brandon Cooks now, but his deal isn't a first-round player. He's into his first round or his first rookie deal. So that means, it's not ideal in terms of the first contract some players face. So that would be nice to have, but Bill Belichick has made his decision. He's gone off this offseason, done more than enough to supplement a lack of a first-round pick. So, yeah, I just don't see it happening, even though, he likes those contracts. He likes getting players with value that don't cost a lot of money. We know that. But with that being said, the Patriots do have picks in the third round, 2 in the third round. They have a fourth rounder, and then a few later on. What do you think the biggest needs are for the Pats with the picks they will make, Yianni?
All right, if I'm the Patriots over the course of the weekend, I would like to see a pass rusher to supplement, Trey Flowers and some of those edge rushers there. I want to see the Pats get to the quarterback. They lost Chris Long. Obviously, you're still trying to make up from losing Chandler Jones and what versatility Jamie Collins brought. So I'd like a pass rusher. I'd like a tackle. Nate Solder is getting old. We know Vollmer just retired, and Marcus Cannon is now the solidified right tackle. I'd like some depth at tackle. And I've read, I'm not a huge mock draft guy. I've read it's a pretty deep tight end draft. I wouldn't mind a tight end that can help out with Gronk. I mean, Dwayne Allen is here kind of on a temporary basis, it seems, for a few years, but I wouldn't mind addressing that situation a little more. And other than that, I don't see any huge, the offense is pretty solidified in terms of receiver, running back. I mentioned the O-line. And then on defense, always you can never have enough guys in the secondary. With the nickel and dime packages everyone plays nowadays, I wouldn't mind another cornerback or safety to throw in there as well. What do you think the Pats need to address this weekend?
Well, you basically covered it there. I would always, for this question, side with the defense. I love defense. I don't think you can have I don't think you can have too many good defensive players. So yeah, I'd like to see if they're going to pick first. If I was going to make the pick, I get a pass rusher. A stable of pass rushers is something I think bodes well in the postseason at any point during a football season. A lot of good guys that can rush the passer. Trey Flowers, obviously emerging, had a big Super Bowl, had a big year for the most part, especially down the stretch. So I like him, but a guy behind him, a guy from the edge that can get to the quarterback would probably be my first choice. Defensive backs, this is a deep defensive back draft. So we'll see if that comes into play later in the third round, in the fourth round, because those are the times when you get the guy that is a depth player that usually makes that interception to seal the playoff game. Those depth defensive backs, when the other team is down and is throwing it and you need that depth there, I would love to see another defensive back. And yeah, just because they're so stacked offensively doesn't mean I'm going to ignore it. Offensive tackle, like you said, tight end, I have no problem with any of those. But I wouldn't mind. Arizona State has this kicker, Zane Gonzalez, I believe is his name. And everything I've read on this kid, he's the best kicking prospect in the last decade to come out of college. So if the Patriots wanted to maybe entertain the thought of drafting him at 96 overall in the fourth round if he was available, I'd be for that, considering the struggles of Stephen Gostkowski. He's an older guy. He's a veteran. I know kickers have a longer shelf life, but I wouldn't mind bringing in a stud like that, turn up the heat in the room of Stephen Gostkowski a little bit and then see what happens. That might be a little bold for a kicker. I wouldn't mind it, though.
Yeah, Gostkowski's still under contract, but, they moved away from Vinatieri a year or two early. Obviously, he had a career 10-plus years, I think, in Indy when they went with Gostkowski. Steve Nielsen would love that decision. He's an ardent ASU fan. All right, let's switch gears to the NBA playoffs. Celtics and Bulls. C's now up 3-2, Game 6 tomorrow night in Chicago. Will the C's close this thing out at the United Center on Friday night?
Yes, they will. Rajon Rondo, no Rajon Rondo. I mean, his finger is broke, as he said. So I'm not going to assume that just because he may be able to play, maybe that he's going to jump into the lineup and be the difference. If he plays, I expect him to be far less than 100%, obviously. And the Celtics, I'm sure, would just let him do what he wants and shoot the ball, and he won't be able to. So I think the Celtics go there where they've won 2 straight games in Chicago, end the series, and we move on to Washington. I would expect Washington to eventually beat Atlanta. And essentially the Celtics take care of business like they should have right from the get-go in this series. Now, they dealt with Isaiah Thomas, a very complicated and difficult situation. So, you give them a pass, but eventually the Celtics prevail and they go to where they're supposed to go, which is the second round, and then we'll get a real test from there.
I mean, if you're the Chicago Bulls, how can you feel any sort of confidence right now after losing 3 straight games? And as you mentioned, you're starting point guard Rajon Rondo with a broken thumb. So I think the Celtics have all the momentum in the world. I was there last night. We spoke to Al Horford in the locker room. It seems like these guys are pretty confident that they can close it out Game 6 on Friday. If I'm Dwayne Wade, some of these guys are saying last night that, the hot water wasn't working at the TD Garden, an old Red Auerbach move. I think they're kind of just done with the year. They're booking their off-season vacation plans, and the Celtics can smell the blood. And if they want to be a true number 1 team and be a team that is respected, you need to close out games. You don't want to drag this into a Game 7. That's when things can get a little fluky. So I think they will close it out in Game 6. IT didn't have that great of a game. He ended up with 24 last night, but he struggled for the most part in the first half. So I see him rebounding. And I see the Celtics winning and then seeing Washington, as you alluded to. I think the Wizards close out the Hawks Friday, so we'd have a Game 1 at the TD Garden on Sunday.
Warm water wasn't working? Are you serious? That actually came out of somebody's mouth.
So Dwayne Wade said, these guys stay in 5-star hotels. You think they want to be showering in cold water? They're used to the life of luxury.
Okay.
Do you take cold showers?
That's a sad story.
Do you take cold showers?
I occasionally. I could muscle through one, though, and I wouldn't be talking to the media about it. Crying out loud. Anyway, let's switch gears. The Boston Bruins, they made some news yesterday as well. They are out of the playoffs. However, they did strip the interim tag from now head coach Bruce Cassidy. Bruce Cassidy becomes the 28th coach in franchise history. Yianni, are you okay with the move?
I approve the move. Ever since he came aboard in February, I think he's done enough. He rallied the troops. They made that playoff run. They won, however many games in a row in that winning streak. And I think he has a rapport with a lot of the young guys he coached in Providence. I think the veteran guys like him enough that, let's sustain this. While I don't know how much momentum is involved in getting to the playoffs and not winning a series, but when you consider all the injuries and such for the Bruins and where they were in early February, I think it was an accomplishment of sort of some momentum building here. So if he's a guy that you think develops players with Charlie McAvoy and Pasternak and some of the young guys, then keep him there and, see where it goes from here. And also, I'm not big on the coaching carousel on the NHL. I don't know who is out there. But I don't think it'd be a good message to the team to bring in someone from the outside, so I 100% approve keeping Cassidy.
I was kind of enamored with the thought of Nate Lehman, Providence College head hockey coach, maybe getting some looks by the Boston Bruins. I don't think I was alone on that, but Bruce Cassidy is the man for the job. How could he not be? 18-8-1 down the stretch. He took them to the playoffs. They bounced back. They faced adversity. They bounced back. I liked what he did calling out Kourakis when he had to, putting his players on notice. When there was some lackluster efforts there down the stretch, he pinpointed it. We weren't in the locker room, in the dressing room, but based on how he talked to the media, he told the guys the way it was. I feel like people responded to him. And, of course, you have to give him this job. You have to, based on what he did, there's nobody else for the job right now. It was his to lose. He didn't lose it. In fact, he won it. So this is a guy that has been in the NHL before, paid all of those dues back, any dues that he owed down in the minors for, 13 years,
Yep.
Had a great run in Providence. I mean, how many times did they just keep winning? And we're sitting there looking at the schedule. They're still in it. They keep winning in Providence, even as the Boston Bruins were taking a lot of their players while Bruce Cassidy was the head coach in Providence. They kept winning. He obviously knows what he's doing. He knows something. I'm assuming he learned a lot while he was in the minors for that decade. So, yeah, this is the time for Bruce Cassidy, and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to what he can do during a full slate of games, a full 82-game season, and we'll find out next year. But he absolutely should have been the man for this job, and I like that the Bruins didn't waste any time, and they signed him right away.
Yeah, and sometimes the Bruins have muffed announcements. Let's talk about firing Claude Julien the day of the Patriot Parade, so this was handled a little bit better. And let's just hope he invites you to a Bruins practice so you can skate with the big boys after your great debut with the P. Bruins. All right, we close with this. Red Sox-Yankees, first game rained out. Last night was during a Celtics game. Tonight during the draft, so a little bit overshadowed, and that's perhaps emblematic of what this rivalry is in 2017. You and I are of a certain age where we lived and breathed Sox-Yanks in 03 and 04, and we've seen the rivalry sort of subside in terms of excitement. Is Sox-Yankees a big deal still?
I was actually thinking the other night, and I used this in my lead-in for the highlights. Do I actually miss the curse of the Bambino? I think I kind of do. I think I kind of miss. Yes, I miss the curse of the Bambino because we've seen this before. It happens in dating. Sometimes the chase is actually more fun than getting the girl. And I wonder if that is part of what's going on here. The chase for the championship, we were so hungry for one, we as in Boston Red Sox fans, that can never be duplicated. I mean, they came back from 0-3. They were down 0-3 to the Yankees, and they win the series. They win the World Series. How is it supposed to get better than that? How is it supposed to be better than that? Right now, it certainly isn't. I mean, Greg Bird and, Aaron Judge, and that's fine. That's great. But, there's no heat there. There's no animosity, really. There's more animosity with the Orioles, for crying out loud. So, this rivalry isn't what it was. It's too bad. But I guess that's just the natural progression of things like that. And, hey, maybe it'll get back to that point one day. They need to play in the playoffs again. I feel like that's the one missing piece here.
Yeah.
If they could get to that point, then we'll reevaluate.
Yeah, they haven't played in the playoffs since 04. And the answer to the question, is Red Sox-Yankees important in April? I think the answer is no. They play, 18 or 19 times. So the significance of these games, I mean, you go to the ballpark, I don't know who was there last night, but I don't know if there's that same Yankees-Red Sox buzz at Fenway, as there will be if they're in a pennant race in September and they're tied for first place and it's Chris Sale going against Tanaka and it feels big, then yes. I still think it can be quote-unquote important if these two were playing meaningful games together in September. But as you alluded to, the days of 03 and 04, big bad Yankees, underdog Red Sox, those days are over. And as you mentioned, I think the chase, hanging on every pitch, waiting to beat the big bad Yankees is what made being a Red Sox fan. It gave you your identity. Once they did that and won, and now they've won 3 more, they're just another successful World Series championship team. So I don't think it's as fun as a Red Sox fan. And listen, in those days, it was Sox, Yankees, and everyone else. Those were the days where the teams that spent money dominated the league. Now Baltimore, Tampa, and Toronto have all been relevant over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not as top-heavy in the AL East. But, you know, once it's prime baseball time, I think we'll care about a series like this more than we do in April when there's NBA and NHL playoffs and the NFL draft. But and the guys on the team, Mark,
there's so much more to it.
Pedro, Schilling, and Manny, and Ortiz, and Damon, and Clemens, and A-Rod. I mean, the guys on the roster now, they just don't elicit that sort of fervor in you.
No, and Nomar and Jeter, that debate raged on for years. The Yankees won 3 straight World Series in the late 90s. They were coming off of that run, so we hated them, Red Sox fans, even more. It was the perfect storm of futility and animosity and big names, and it was just a great era in baseball in Boston, in New York, I would assume. And, you know, I kind of, again, if they could play in the postseason, I think it starts there, and then you go from there. Then you can start hating people. Some guy on the Yankees that really, you know, Aaron Judge last night had a huge game. Let him have a huge series against the Red Sox. Then we'll see where we're at.
All right, good stuff, Mark, on location in Foxborough. Hopefully next week we'll get in studio together for the first time in a while. That'll do it for episode 50. We're halfway to 100 of Double OT, which means we're approaching our 1-year anniversary. Steve Pascal is baking us a cake, he said. So we'll have, you know, blowhorns and funny hats for that one. But for now, we are 50 episodes in. Catch it all on WPRI.com and follow our social media pages at Mark Dondero and at Yianni Kourakis. We will see you next time.